Hey, it's a busy week in web videos, so it's time for another edition of Hacking TV.
First, Microsoft is getting back into the video box business.
Then BuzzFeed is saying, show me the money, and that means, of course, more video.
Meanwhile, over at Facebook, they are writing off $500 million that they spent buying a video ad tech company.
And at Verizon, the CEO admits that the Go90 launch may be a little overhyped. I'm Steve Rosenbaum.
And I'm Saul Hansel.
And this is Hacking TV. Greetings, Saul.
Greetings from the new improved studio here in Montclair, New Jersey, half a mile from the old one with 4 times the bandwidth.
So last weekend I was traveling and I ended up landing in Seattle, and I had this very strange feeling as I got to the gate, which was, are they going to frisk me and say, I'm sorry, sir, but you're in Seattle, you're in Microsoft territory. You've just got way too many Apple devices on you. You're going to have to leave some of them behind.
Well, back in the era of Bill Gates, that might well have happened. Now, in the much more humble Nadella version, they were just check to see if you had your Office 360 subscription paid up to date and maybe at least one Microsoft app on your iPhone.
So by the way, my older son, who's very wise about these things, noticed that we were leaving from a big sign that said B. Gates, and wondered if that had been in memory of Mr. Gates. I said, no, I think it's probably coincidental, but it was funny nonetheless. But it does bring us to a Microsoft story, which is they seem to be, still in the game, if not maybe that current. They're building a box.
Right. Well, one of their few successful division still is Xbox, but what they're doing is going back to the TV business, which they had been in and out of a bunch of times. I mean, going way, way back, they had Windows Media Center and Windows Media Center extenders that you could connect your TV to your PC, which would be a DVR, and 12 people did this, and, they built a set-top box operating system for AT&T's Uverse. And then, as Apple TV was chugging along in Roku, a couple years ago, there were rumors they were going to come out with a $100 set-top box. They never did, but the latest set of reports says, they're dusting off the plans and they're going to come out with an Xbox TV set-top box, as if we need another thing besides Fire TV and Chromecast and so on.
And just so I understand, right, they're thinking that you're going to just take your Roku and throw it under the bus and buy an Xbox TV? I mean, is that what?
I mean, there are presumably, the Xbox has an installed base in the tens of millions. So maybe there is some brand loyalty there. There are actually a fair number of people who use their Xbox primarily to watch Netflix on. And so maybe there is a little market, but they need something new and different for anyone to pay any attention to them.
Yeah, I think the box space is pretty crowded, and by the way, and we were talking about this before we started the podcast, a little blurry where the box space ends and the OTT space begins. There's a PlayStation service that we've talked about on the show before that I guess I wrongly thought was a box-based service, and then you actually did the research, and it turns out, no, you can pretty much use it on anything. So
Sony, injured but still a conglomerate, understands that the internet gives them a chance to have direct distribution, right? So they make movies and TV shows, but they don't own cable networks or TV stations or anything. So they started a cable substitute. I think they were maybe the first of the alternative cable bundles. They came out very expensive, $60 a month for a whole bunch of channels.
This is PlayStation Vue, for those of you
PlayStation Vue, which you can use on your PlayStation, either a PS3 or PS4, but you can also use on a Fire TV, on your iPad or iPhone, not Apple TV. But
so, by the way, this is a new trend, this naming non-physical services out, and it's like Slingbox TV, which you don't need the Slingbox to use, or PlayStation Vue, which you don't need a PlayStation to use. Like, do they not think customers may be confused by this?
Maybe we need Maytag TV. Sorry. You do not need a dishwasher to watch television on Maytag TV.
That's very funny.
So, and there's some news this week. PlayStation, I don't know how many subscribers they've got. I don't see a lot of marketing for it, but what they Sony is big and has relationships, and so they've actually cut deals with a whole bunch of local TV stations so that they can actually say, all right, buy this thing, it's cable over the internet, and it actually includes the networks. And, I mean, it's spotty each market. They have a different set of affiliates because they've got to go negotiate all these rights.
So here's where I think we should reach out to the audience. If you are a PlayStation Vue customer and you'd like to come on the show and talk about your experience with it, or either email us or tweet us or send us a carrier pigeon, we're hackers@hackingtv.news. And we would love to hear from you. And we'd love to hear.
Same thing, by the way, if you are a subscriber to Sling TV.
No, but you know what? I'm not necessarily interested in beating on Sling TV. I want to be.
Okay.
I don't think there is a subscriber to PlayStation Vue, is my theory. Either in our listening audience or in any. I have not met a human being in captivity that has ever used this service.
Okay.
And if I were being the diligent experimenter for this team, I would sign up for it. But $29 a month, even a 1 month to have to cancel it, I'm not sure I have the mental bandwidth to do it.
And well, they're on the iTunes store. They have 236 reviews with a 2.5 star rating, and so 236 people have at least tried the free trial.
With a 2.5 star rating, though, that's like terrible.
Yes, indeed.
That's like not a good thing.
It's not a good thing, no. And I am pulling up as we speak because we can multitask here. Sling TV has 2,000 ratings.
Better, which is better.
And a 2-star rating. So Sling TV has a lower rating than PlayStation Vue. But
just
by a lot more people.
Just so long as we're doing this, put Roku in there and see what comes up.
Well, Roku
I'm
wouldn't
kidding.
have
it's a box. It's not the same thing.
Right. But Roku, who knows? Right.
But moving on, let's transition to chapter 2 and the BuzzFeed story that we teased at the top of the show. What do we think's going on at BuzzFeed?
Well, there's two cross currents, and there's a very interesting story. So Dylan Byers moved from Politico to CNN Money, which with Brian Stelter is actually building up pretty damn good media coverage and actually has, an interesting piece trying to ask the question, so what's up with BuzzFeed News in the overall BuzzFeed conglomerate, right? So BuzzFeed takes the world by storm with listicles and quizzes, which Gilligan's Island cast member are you and all of that stuff. But then they hire Ben Smith of Politico. They build up, a decent little news operation. Jonah Peretti talks about how news is an important part of the mix for prestige and for doing good. And then we're now in a world where text is a lot less important and video's where the money is. And they have Z Frank and a whole bunch of other people doing BuzzFeed videos and all those things we talked about last week or the week before, the little silly cooking videos that are all over Facebook Live. And in that world, is the news like even less important than it was? They've admitted that they're not growing the way they had been, and they brought in somebody from Z Frank's operation to help rethink news videos as opposed to everything else they do. But it's really an open question.
Well, because Vice kind of has it wrapped up at the moment. I mean, Vice is killing it.
Well, no, Vice is killing it from a
Millennial
selling stock point of view. I don't actually think anybody watches Vice, the Vice News stuff. But it doesn't matter because their business is not viewers, it's owners and ad agencies. Right, I mean, they sell stock and ads. They don't care about views. A little cynical, but not.
Hold on one second. I gotta silence this ad that's playing. All right, there we go. Oh, we're back.
Wait,
hold on. We may have buried the lead there. You really think no one watches Vice?
I don't know that they do, half an hour of stories about the Ukraine. People watch stuff about, in volume, about stuff that, the sex and drugs and rock and roll, which is how they got going. But, all right, let's ask the vast hacking TV audience if you've watched a web video from Vice from one of their many foreign bureaus. Send us an email.
You can vote. I'll vote right now. I watched that Ukraine video, the half-hour one. Thought it was excellent.
It was excellent.
Don't quiz me on any of the facts, though,
but it had this young hip guy. He was like the Anderson Cooper of the next generation, and boy, he could do a selfie with the iPhone.
So you think that BuzzFeed is going to, after their slightly unhappy numbers that came out a couple months back, is going to go back to the knitting? They're going to.
I actually think that Jonah believes what he says. I think that Jonah wants to use the evil for good. I like him. I trust him. And so what they are doing is going back to the drawing board a little bit. So the quote here that I think is tricky is, we'll test to see what the most shareable video we can make around a story. And we'll all jump on one specific beat or one specific trending thing in the conversation to see what video forms we can come up with as we go. And so if you're defining your news video thing as making video that is shareable and part of the conversation, and that, I think that's a very limiting definition of what TV news can be. But I think they're smart people and are worth watching.
But by the way, this isn't part of our 4-part chapters in the show, but we got to throw this in because, the Viacom drama is now reached a fevered pitch, and you made me think of this because of Vice. The rumor mill du jour says that Tom Freston is gonna ride in on a white horse to save Viacom.
By doing what? By putting Sumner out of misery?
By being Tom Freston. I mean, you need to know that
I've met him once or twice. What does being Tom Freston, mean in the middle of King Lear?
Well, I think Tom would come in the post King Lear, but I think he would be the cleansing breath after the King Lear drama ends. But I mean, there's a whole community of ex-Viacom folks, of which I am one tangentially, that are waiting for Viacom to awake from its internet slumber and become a meaningful player in the new world again with its great brands.
And would you rather, do you think that the company will do better with Freston rather than Philippe Dumont running it?
Well, I mean, you're presuming that Philippe Dumont has been running it. I mean,
it doesn't sound. I mean, Sumner can't speak, so there's a limit to how much running you can do if you're in bed and you're 94 and you haven't been able to actually speak for 2 years.
All right, so my theory here, and then we can get back to the order of the day, but it's all tied to what is these are great brands. They have great creative bones. There will be a next chapter. Shari Redstone will be either actual leader or titular leader, but will be the leader of this new organization. And there are a handful of players that are in the wings that could arrive on a white horse, and I don't think Philippe Dumond is one of them.
We will see.
We will.
I'm not so sure that those brands that they own, are necessarily the strongest brands in the new world, with the exception of Star Trek.
Well, no, I mean they're not, in part because they've been left anyway. But speaking of big companies that make mistakes from time to time, I think that Facebook's decision to pull the plug on $500 million is interesting. You weren't as fascinated by it as I was.
Well, so LiveRail is a company they bought that was in the business of helping publishers connect to advertisers. It had sort of a private exchange, right? So you're running an internet site and you want to sell video ads, and you get your customers to do business with you on LiveRail. It's one of those things that if everybody's happy, it's a nice little business. Since the key thing is Facebook bought Atlas, which had been an independent company that Microsoft bought for a lot of money, basically ruined. And Facebook bought it from them and is building up an ad tech stack because they have to have what Google has, right? And Google is the biggest in ad tech by far right now. And so they bought this as a fill-in to add video capabilities into Atlas, and it turns out it was harder, and, well, never mind.
But the question, which we don't know the answer to, is, never mind, we're out of the publisher ad tech business, or we're just going to build it ourselves?
No, they're building themselves, and they have, what do they call, Facebook Audience Network, which is working very well. So if you are, and it's a mobile-only network, so if you have a mobile app or a mobile website, you can have Facebook sell ads for you. And the thing that they do that makes it very powerful for publishers is it's like a little extra checkbox when you're buying ads on Facebook. And since Facebook is selling, well, last year sold $17 billion worth of ads, they're funneling a fair bit of business to these other websites. So that's working. Other stuff they're doing. Atlas, I think, is a little bit, overall a work in progress.
This is the equivalent of what AOL did with Adapt TV.
Well, Atlas is the equivalent of DoubleClick, but
I'm sorry. I'm back to LiveRail for a second.
LiveRail, I don't know Adapt TV.
It was a video ad network, ad tech network. It was the ad video piece of the stack.
Okay, and everybody has their own nuances in this ad tech business, and so look, one of Mark's mantras is move fast, break things, right? They have a shitload of money and they're spending it. I mean, I still am not sure about whether spending $16 billion on WhatsApp makes any sense at all, but for a company that spends $16 billion on WhatsApp, $500 million on some ad tech thing is smaller.
They still wish they bought Snapchat, boy.
Did they have the opportunity? I thought Snapchat said no.
Well, they did say no. They said, I still think that will go down in internet history as one of those great moments where Mark Zuckerberg shows up with a checkbook and they say, "Yeah, never mind. We're gonna go it alone."
That
they just raised $1.8 billion.
Right. That the even better. When you list the things that didn't go right for Yahoo, the fact that Yahoo could have bought Google and chickened out, and Yahoo then could have bought Facebook and chickened out. Right. Those are two interesting deals that didn't get done.
But not on Marissa's watch, to be fair.
No. She probably could have sold for more than she's going to sell for now. A flip side, by the way, to the Facebook So Live Rail's closing, but there's another story kicking around. This is showing how much ad inventory is moving on Instagram, and they're just filling the thing up with video ads, and advertisers seem to be happy, and so you can cover a lot of losses on your ad tech if you actually have own properties that are used by hundreds of millions of people that people will buy ads on, right? That's
so paint me in the dumb category here. I mean, I'm an Instagram user. I put photos up there. I comment on them, but don't think I've ever seen an Instagram ad.
Well, do you spend much time just aimlessly flipping through all the feeds you subscribe to?
That's a trick question because it seems pejorative. You're saying all Instagram users are aimless?
I'm sorry. Do you eagerly see what the feeds you subscribe to have in their updates?
No. To be fair, so you're saying that's when I'd see the ads?
You would see the ads not as a publisher, but as a subscriber, right? And there are lots of them, and but they're also designed to look like Instagram posts.
So they're native.
Yes, they're native in the best way, meaning they are in the flow of whatever it is you're doing. I don't think that I'm not sure people assume that Instagram posts have any editorial integrity. Sometimes people talk about native advertising as being, deceitful advertorials, and deceitful advertorials are bad.
So it's worth pointing out that Sheryl Sandberg on their first quarter earnings call noted that video ads take the place of another ad in the news feed, so not all revenue is incremental.
Right, but absolutely, I mean, they have this very complicated vision that you should only pay for advertising when you actually get more sales. So you can actually hook your cash register up to your advertising and bid an amount that basically says, every time I sell a fleece sweater because of this ad, I'm going to pay you $20. It's a very interesting, not fully built out yet vision.
Well, it's a particular kind of advertising. It's advertising that's tied specifically to action. And
right. Well, you can pick whatever action. You can pick an action that says, "I want them to listen to my podcast. I want them to,
but
again, email list."
But the reason why that's fundamentally unfair, advertisers would say, is attribution becomes the issue. So let's say I see one ad for, whatever, Barnes & Noble, and then I see another ad for Barnes & Noble, and then I see a third ad for Barnes & Noble, and I click on it, and I buy a book. Those first two ads, which, helped kind of lubricate me to be a customer, are getting no credit.
Yes. Attribution is one of those great philosophical questions that we need monasteries filled with monks to think about for centuries.
Well, I mean, I'm not an advertising agency person, but let me pretend to be one for the purposes of this podcast for a moment. If part of what advertising is supposed to do is make you feel something about a brand, not necessarily have to buy something, to feel warmth or feel love or feel excitement, the minute that everything becomes a direct response ad, it's like, buy this thing, buy this pack of gum, buy this box of cereal. Like, I mean, am I clicking on the Cheerios television ad to buy a box of cereal? Probably not, because I'm not at the supermarket. But it still helps make me feel something about Cheerios.
Absolutely. I mean, the way you might do that, a more sample-based thing, is you say, we're going to pick some group of people, and we're going to show half of them the Cheerios ad and half of them not the Cheerios ad, and presumably on average both groups saw the same number of Cheerios ads in all the other media. And so if the ones that also saw the ad on Facebook buy more Cheerios than the ones that didn't, that incremental lift, theoretically, with a lot of methodological something or another, could be attributed to Facebook.
So we're glad that Facebook is thinking big thoughts. I'm surprised that they shut down LiveRail. I thought LiveRail, I had friends that worked there, and I thought it was kind of a good business and, doing interesting things.
Most acquisitions get screwed up by the owner. I mean, list the big acquisitions, by Microsoft and Google and AOL and all these others, and a couple of them work out sometimes really well, and most of them get written off.
Well, and some of it's cultural, right? I mean, you're used to being three guys in a card table doing a startup, and all of a sudden you're in a company that's got HR and, all kinds of rules and all kinds of, drug testing and all kinds of stuff that you didn't expect to have. And, the culture of startups often don't fit well into their big acquirers.
Speaking of acquisitions,
I thought you were going to say speaking of drug testing.
The acquirer who got acquired, the AOL gets swallowed by the phone company. And there's a bunch of stuff that out about Verizon. Did I tell you last week about the marketing guy who came to install my FiOS because they're on strike?
But that's the big news for Verizon is that the strike has been settled, and the installers will be going back to work, and I think, although I have no data to back this up, that clears the way for Verizon to buy Yahoo.
Why would Verizon not have been able to buy Yahoo when the guys who climb poles in the Northeast were on strike?
Because it just was going to be terrible optics. We have the money to buy internet assets, but we're going to let our poor, underpaid, struggling pole climbers remain poor and underpaid. It just I think it was going to muck up the transaction. I think they just needed one. Look. First of all, they wanted the strike settled anyway. I mean, it's not like they were like doing a strike breaker move. They had some disagreement and they were trying to get it done. And I think they want to do the Yahoo transaction, and I think the optics would have been bad. So now they're better.
Although it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm sort of rooting. The other bidder that's gotten a lot of press is Dan Gilbert from my hometown of Detroit. He's the CEO of Quicken Loans, and he has some scheme to revive Yahoo, and maybe they move it to Detroit, and there'll be a company that people want to work for in Detroit.
But there is another Verizon announcement that the understated, quiet Midwestern CEO admitted that Go90 maybe had been a little overhyped.
And hence it's being renamed Go17.
I just thought for Lloyd McAdams to say that was, I'm not sure why they had to say that. There's no data, right? They're not releasing numbers about total number of users or total number of subscribers. So what's the purpose of saying that? I mean, he's not pulling in his horns. He's not saying we're going to shift our resources. The speech was about patient capital. I'm not sure what what does that do internally and what does that do externally?
He was at an investor conference. Somebody might have asked him, and he might have made the horrible mistake of actually answering.
Nah, they're better media trained than that. But yeah, I don't know. That being said, I think what Verizon's learning on Go90, is what many folks have learned about internet content, which is, you could argue that MRSA learned the same thing. It's not simply a matter of coming in with a checkbook and it's very hard to buy audience. It's very hard. You can build a good product. You can put together the right assets. You can release it properly. and getting people to discover it and remember it and come back to it is very, very, very hard.
So, just as a point of comparison, we talked about the iTunes Store ratings for the two cable services, which give you lots of content from all the same networks that you get from cable, and they were, 2 and 2.5 stars. Go90 has 1,300 ratings, and it's 3.5 stars, which I think reflects the wonderful freeness of it all. Although it's bifurcated. There are 600 5-star reviews and 400 1-star reviews.
Really?
Yes.
So the audience either loves it or hates it.
Right. The most recent review is, if you're over 14 and not a soccer fan, forget it.
Really?
And that was 1 star. And the first 5-star review says, love it, stream soccer games.
All right. Well,
so
that's very, and we have hacked our way through another half hour, Mr. Hansel, and we're going to wrap up, but we'll be back next week. The Code Conference is coming up, so there'll be, I suspect, a bunch of video news out of the Code Conference. There always is, and some show releases to talk about, and the summer web TV season heating up. And with that,
it's definitely heating up all across web TV land, and we will swelter through it all next week.
see you next week.
Keep on hacking.